Councillor Shiner.
My questions are of the city manager. So I understand your frustration and your comments about operating as if we're 4 different municipalities almost in districts, because you and I have talked about that. But I'm trying to understand in this regard, in particular with the paving contracts that were out there, what we as council should have done to make sure this didn't happen.
So this is not just a retrospective issue, Councillor, and my intention is never and never would be to imply that council should have acted earlier on these issues. What I'm concerned about is that this is a situation where a practice appears to have been hiding in plain sight, and where collectively management has missed that. And as we look at that, that is not something that we need to take lightly. That is something we need to look at in a fundamental way. And that fundamental means all of the measures we've taken, and there are a large number of measures, and it means a focus on continuous improvement. And anybody who's had the privilege of leading a large organization knows that continuous improvement is all about culture. And that culture change needs to be led collectively by management, but it also needs to be vigorously supported by the board of directors. But I will observe, and I will observe unpleasantly and difficultly, that while I have talked about risk many times in this chamber, there has been a profound reluctance to embrace the constructs of risk. That the focus of issues are appropriately local, but in an organization that is a $12 billion organization that has immense amount of contract, fiscal, and other risk, we tend not to be able to deal with those things systematically. I think we need to develop that DNA in this chamber, collectively, management and the Board of Directors Council.
Well, I support that, but I know that since amalgamation, we've on an ongoing basis hired KPMG and other consultants to look at how the city runs and ways to improve it. That I've spoken probably ad nauseum about the fact we worked as 4 different districts, about the fact that, and I raised it yesterday when the speaker cut me off, that I can't even get a report from the planning division as to how we can see their measurements of their key performance indicators, although the committee even moved for that and adding new staff for it, and it never comes to us. How we continually work through these initiatives, and I've said numerous times, I've seen the same thing in our snow clearing contracts when I looked at them a number of years ago, where 4 divisions, contractor A bid lowest in one and highest in the other 3 because he was there. Contractor B bid lowest where he was and highest in the rest. And as a member of council, I've said that. So what can I do as an individual councillor, even collectively, when I know that I've raised these issues, where I can't see them come back, where I'm probably as frustrated or more frustrated with you, and in a lot of ways, we've expected the city management to come back to us with that. And I don't know what to do. I mean, I even look, and I've said, we look at contracting out garbage. It was worthwhile to contract it out under Lastman. It wasn't worthwhile under Miller. It was a question mark when it came to it under Ford, and it seems to be a good thing to do now under the current mayor. How did it change so many times? Because I don't write those reports. I don't have any input into the analysis of those reports, and I'm not the one putting the recommendations in front of this council chamber. And I acknowledge the fact that my colleagues may have perspectives, but how do I get the staff to do that when I don't have that direct involvement?
So here's my frank and direct advice, that you treat this organization as a $12 billion organization and not just an amalgamation of smaller organizations. That we think systematically, that we think about, is this the management structure? Is this the way in which a $12 billion organization, the 6th largest municipality, the 6th largest government in Canada, should conduct itself? Have we put in place fundamental mechanisms? Does anybody know in this chamber how many internal auditors there are in this organization? I think it's about half a dozen. That's an absolute joke. And that should never have existed. That should never, frankly, have existed. And this is something that we need to actually address. And I know that it has not been raised before, and it will be raised now. But when I come and I talk about the need for a culture that actually looks at these issues, they should not be thought of as padding management. They should be thought of as actually establishing a regime and a governance structure that is appropriate. And when we come to deal with the utterly irrational ownership and pattern of real estate, which we have also talked about and which I appreciate your support for, that should be a very straight conversation where we understand that it's a joke now and it needs to change, because there is immense risk built into that decentralized model with no ability to talk across the organization. Those are things that we fundamentally need to address. They have not been addressed. They are legacy issues. They are legacy issues that predate me. They frankly predate everybody at this table. This is a fundamental challenge that we face, and we face it together. And it cannot be done by only looking at management. It needs the collective support of our board of directors, the councillor. I do apologize for my tone. It's not the tone I intended to take at all today. I just feel passionately that this is a big issue and one that we owe a response to our public to address.